Whose speech? River Phoenix? River Phoenix? Brad Pitt? I mean, Joaquin Phoenix, sorry. One of the things that I want you guys to, that's why I tell you guys don't get, yeah, well, I tell you guys, look, I always tell you, if you want to go up there and be political, that's you're in charge of your career, do what you want, but I highly discourage it because one, can't help but to alienate half the country, right? Because half the people are going to disagree with you. But I was just reminded, actually, I just saw a thing today. I'll think of her name in just a second. Jamila Jamil. Do you guys know who she is? Okay.
From ESPN?
No. Jamila Jamil is, so she got a job. Now she's been an outspoken LBGTQ, whatever the letters are, right? So she's been an outspoken advocate for them for her whole career, okay? She gets a job on HBO's ballroom dancing thing, okay, as a judge. They are now calling for her, well, she had to now come out as queer. I use queer because that's what she came out as. But they wanted her to step down from that job because there are people that are more deserving of it than her. So just consider what you're going to promote, that you're going to bust your ass in here. Just imagine, Miguel, if you, I'm going to say, no, I'm using you for a specific reason. You bust your ass in here and you get really good at acting, and then you get cast as a black man from America, and then you're supposed to now refuse it because you're not actually a black man from America, like you're not African American. You should step down and give the role, allow somebody who actually is an African American to take over.
That's nonsense.
It is nonsense. That's why I'm saying be careful what you promote, because now here's the thing. Joaquin Phoenix comes out and he's like very animal rights thing, whatever, right? Well, just so you guys know that most of the companies, the studios are run by companies, right? Big corporations. So what's going to happen when he gets cast in a movie that is partly owned by a company that Pepsi-Cola has a thing in, and Pepsi-Cola owns Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Kentucky Fried Chicken actually has not free-range birds. They use the case things, and they're gonna be like, you need to step down from that job. Now, luckily, he's got some money that maybe he can, but what happens if he goes and makes that movie not knowing that, and then they find that out and comes out? Dude, I'm telling you, don't get political. It will come back to bite you in the butt. You can have your views and everything like that, but I'm telling you, it's best to just, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks to the Academy. Thank you, Matthew, for making me the actor I am today.
But you know what it is? I thought about that, like what you're talking about, and it's even like, it's coming up around a lot, especially like the whole Kobe Bryant thing and the way that whole thing's being handled. Like, that thing you talked about in the past where just because you're at this, like, just because you have this platform doesn't make you an expert in that specific thing.
That's correct.
So like, it sucks because I'm a huge fan of her, but fucking can't remember her name. She played Mickey Rourke's daughter in wrestling.
In what? No.
Evan Rachel Wood, right?
Yeah, Evan Rachel Wood. That's right.
So she writes this comment about Kobe Bryant, and she says, I'm mourning his family, and I feel really, really bad for them, but let's all remember he was still a rapist.
Yeah.
And that still has to exist. And then my thing is just like, right, that's how you feel about the situation, because I have nothing to prove that he was a rapist or he wasn't a rapist. I have my own personal attachments to him, whatever. But it's like, if you're gonna make that type of, if you're gonna say something so bold and disrespectful, and you don't have a foundation to back that up, and you're gonna put his family through that shit just because people have to hear what you have to say, it's a super irresponsible thing to say. So
Yeah,
I
look.
definitely get where you're coming from.
Yeah, and so look, I want you guys to be, as I told you, artists have always held very strong political views, but have changed the world through their art, not because there's some talk show that allows them to jaw about. If you have a point to make, go fucking make a movie that makes your point, and not hitting people over the head with it. I mean, there's always been, look, Look at Anchorman. You know, I just did Anchorman for you guys a little bit ago. Anchorman is this silly comedy from what, maybe 10 years ago, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. It's this silly comedy, but it's so smart because what does it show? They subtly show, look how misogynistic the news business was that they thought that women couldn't do it. And so suddenly they show, look how Neanderthal these guys were. And so they smartly said it in the 70s instead of today, right? Because that's kind of the way it was. But they show, look how backwards thinking this thinking was, but it's disguised within art. And then we go, look at this, yeah, it's ridiculous. I can't believe we ever thought like that. Instead of coming out today and, you know, they're just like hitting you over the head with it going, you know, they'll make a movie today of like the Birds of Prey. She says in the movie that she voted for Bernie Sanders. Come on. Like, it's like nonsense, you know? But anyways, here's what I wanted to talk about. So, has nothing to do with politics or anything. But like I said, if you guys want to be political, you're in charge of your art. If you want to get up there and spew your stuff, I'll disown you. I'll say, I told him not to do that. But if you want to do it, it's up to you. It's your art, it's your platform, whatever. But I highly discourage it. Change the world through your art. But here's what I'll say. So I went over to Sean's house. And so those of you that have never, some of you guys know Sean. Some of you have never met him, but he's my mentor. He's been my teacher since 2004. And we weren't really close until about 8 years in. So about 2012, right? We got pretty close. And then within the last 5 years, super close, right? I go over to his house, you know, on average once, twice a week. And he said something that I had never heard him say in this way before. And I was like, oh, because there's a lot. It's such a simple, tight phrase. There's no fat on it, to use a comedian's term. There's no fat on it, and I wanted to present it to you guys. And so we were watching just the arrivals, right? And the girl that she arrives, and she's the lead actor that was nominated for Harriet Tubman. I forget what her name is, but so they begin to interview her, and I had never heard anything. I never knew who she was, anything. They begin to interview her. She opens her mouth, and what do I find out the minute she opens her mouth? She's British. And I'm like, what do you know? British person, once again, nominated for an Academy Award, playing an American. You tell me there's no black female actors that could pass for Harriet Tubman? She's the only one? But no, right? And so I go, what do you know? British actor, steals it apart for an American, gets nominated for an Academy Award. And here's what I said, because they train, right? What's that? Well, hold on a second. And so Sean says, no. They train as if they're training for a high-paying career. Think how much goes into that. She doesn't just train. You guys all train. You guys come here once a week, right? He says, no, they train as if they're going for a high-paying career. So I was like, think about that. Let's say that, I'm going to use sports, but how many think that if you guys practice playing basketball, tennis, soccer, whatever, 1 hour a week, how long would it take you to be a professional? My guess is that there's people that only practice acting when they come to class 15 minutes. I'm not saying this because I need an answer from you, but I want you to go home and look in the mirror and go, do I practice this as if I'm going to be in a high-paying career? Do I put that effort into it? Because if you're only practicing as if it's a hobby, guess how you're going to be compensated?
As if it was a hobby.
And so, if you're somebody that needs to look, I'm not like my teachers were that first of all, I didn't need it. I actually told you I brought my thing from when I first started. I didn't start as a young actor. I mean, like, I was not young. I started when I was 30. As some of you know, I've told you guys, look, I was pre-med in college, okay? I knew when I was in college that I was going to go to school for 8 years. I just knew it, right? You just know you're going to go to school for 8 years if you're going to be a doctor. You can ask Magdalena, her husband's a doctor. So when I entered into this, I was like, it just in my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this for 8 years before I get a job. That was in my brain. I did not go, oh, I'm this ultimate talent that I'm going to be discovered. I didn't even have that idea because, I didn't know anything about acting. I was not around actors. I know nothing about Hollywood. The way I even found Playhouse West was my fiance at the time was working at a jewelry store and I was working at Walgreens, and she worked with this girl, and she's like, my fiance was thinking about being an actor, and that girl did musical theater, and she's like, well, if he's interested in being an actor, he should go check out this school. That's how I even walked into the door. And so I walked in, listened to Bob teach a class, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. So and he never talked about being discovered or anything, right? He just talked about the work, and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this for 8 years. It was my mindset. And so just give you an idea. So here's from when I started, March 26, 2004. I wrote down every single class my regular classes, by the way, which were twice a week at the time. I wrote down every single thing, not every class that I went to, and every single thing that I did, because I put the responsibility on me. When I very first started, the teacher would say, here's what I want you to bring next week. But once you got to the point where you were doing doors and activities, I wanted to know, am I going to do an activity next week, or am I going to do a door next week? Like, I wanted to keep track of it. And so, and this is not to show you guys that I was not this raw talent that had an aptitude for this. At Playhouse West back in the day, I have no idea what it is now. I was hoping Justin Jones would be here because he did go there. But when I was there, average being in the beginning class, because they had beginning, intermediate, and advanced. Beginning, most people were in there for 6 to 9 months was the average. Then you would go to intermediate. Intermediate is when you start, beginning was nothing but doors and activities, right? Beginning was nothing but doors and activities. You couldn't bring in a scene. There were no scene nights for beginning people. I don't care. Beginning was doors and activities, period. Then when they thought you were good, they would give you what's called an exercise with dialogue. Any of you guys have been with me for a while where you memorize your lines and your lines only? Once you got to be where you were consistently doing good in a door and activity, and by being good meant that you were always consistent. When you were given an activity, you never went up there and half-assed it. You always it was always urgent, meaningful, and difficult. If you were sent to a door, it was meaningful, and you didn't come to the door empty. You had something going on. And I started looking at my thing, and you could tell as I was getting closer to getting my exercise with dialogue, there were classes where I was working twice a class, which I was like, oh yeah, you didn't just automatically work twice a class. They only let the best people in class, and by best meaning you were consistent. Those were the only people that worked twice. Everybody else worked once, and you're lucky if you worked for like 30 seconds if you were bad. And then you got your exercise with dialogue, and then once you did that, then you moved to intermediate. And then when you were in intermediate, you did a scene one class, right? You worked on a scene one class. You could bring a scene to class. And then your other class was a door and activity. So you were doing both, right? And then once you had a handle on that, that was where you spent the longest amount of time, was anywhere between 1 year and 2 years in intermediate. And then you went up to advanced, and then advanced was where you could bring scenes every class. You didn't have to do the door and activity. The door and activity was something to lead into a scene, okay? So 6 to 9 months was average in beginning. Intermediate was 1 year to 2 years, and then advanced, right? You're now an advanced thing. And then they had a senior advanced at the time, which you had to be invited to, but I was invited to it. Just kidding. So to give you an idea, so I went back and looked, and so I was in beginning class. I tell you guys all the time, I was in beginning class I got to intermediate April 25th, and I started April 25th, 2005, and I started March 22nd, 2004. So I was in beginning class doing nothing but doors and activities. I wasn't allowed to do a scene. I wasn't allowed to do anything with dialogue for 13 months. And then I looked here and I was in advanced from April 25th to June 30th. I got it promoted to advanced. I was in an intermediate for 6 weeks. And that's the bulk of the time that you would spend a year to 2 years in the intermediate. But it was because I spent so long in the beginning class that once I got here, I was like, oh, I got it. And I just started, hammered, the pedal to the metal, if you will. But I kept track of every single class and every single person I worked with and what I did. You know what I mean? And not only that, not only did I go to other classes during the week, but I was always practicing with people outside of class, even if it was to get together and do repetition or play the 3-moment game or whatever we did. And it was because I was like, I don't know, I'm not good at this. These kids have such a head start on me. They've been acting since they were 5. And I was like, I just got to do this. And so I just approached it as I was going to do this for 8 years before I ever got a job professionally. And if you think that your talent is that you don't need to do that, let me just tell you that everybody else is talented too. And they're working hard. What's that guy talk about Kobe Bryant? He's like, Kobe didn't want to let him see him out on the court not outworking him. And he's a superior athlete. And so just imagine if you were going to only practice basketball, I'll just use basketball. If you're only going to practice basketball an hour a week, how long, now we talk about being a professional, now how long till you think you can step on the court and play against LeBron? But that's what you guys, not you guys, but right? That's what you guys are thinking that you're going to do. Practicing an hour a week, you think you're going to be ready to go against Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro. And they're going to act the scene with you, I promise you. They're not going to go, I can't act with this person. But I'm going to tell you, when they get in the editing room, they're never going to cut to you. They're only going to cut to you out of necessity. Not because you did something brilliant, because they'll be able to steal the scene from you. They've been doing it for 50 years plus. And they don't just do it an hour a week. So when he said that, he's like, no, they don't just train. They train as if it's a high-paying career, because that's what it is. You know that those actors on Grey's Anatomy get paid more to pretend to be a doctor than doctors make. And so if a doctor has to go to school for 8 years, why would you think that you have to do anything less? And let me tell you, they're not just reading a textbook an hour a week. Magdalena, were you married to him when he was an intern or a resident?
Yep, that's when we started having kids.
Right, he's at the hospital he's got to be up for 36 hours.
It was fun.
And so I want you guys to think that, approach it as if it's a high-paying career, and you'll be paid highly for it. If you're going to just train for it as if it's a hobby, every once in a while you'll get somebody to call you and you'll make your $125 SAG ultra low budget rate. And I don't want that for you guys. I want you guys to make a bunch of money. And, this is a person that you guys, she's not in my class. She came to the script analysis class. Her name's Elise. She was the friend of Denise. Elise, the friend of Denise, the tall, good-looking black girl. So she called me and she goes, hey, I have an audition. Can you help me with it? And I was like, or self-tape. And I was like, sure. She's like, I really liked your approach and everything like that. So she has an audition for the Jason Momoa show on Apple about blind people. I don't know what's called, but something about blind people, because she's supposed to be blind. She has 2 pages. 2. So I go to her house Thursday night. The tape's due Friday morning at 9 a.m. I go to her house Thursday evening, 7 p.m. I'm leaving there at 9:30 p.m. We don't have it taped because she can't do 2 pages. And this is going to be a series regular. So she really wants it. So she's like, can you come back tomorrow morning and help you? And so I was like, yeah, you know, it's the first time I worked with her. So I went back and I'm like, and so I helped her. And, you know, here's what I know. You're not going to get the job. It doesn't mean that you're not a good actor or you're not talented, but there's more that goes into getting this job than just talent. And you got to have a certain skill set. If you cannot do 2 pages in 2.5 hours, why do you even think you can be on a show with fucking Aquaman? And so that's why I tell you guys, it's not, you guys see me, I work with you guys. I'm not some brilliant actor. But I tell you guys, I'm competent, right? I always use the word competent. I'm competent. I can do the job. But I'm not Leo or whoever, right? I'm not some brilliant actor. And so if you can't do what I can do, why do you think you can step on set with the people that have been doing this for decades? They will eat you alive. Director's gonna come up to you. Everything okay? Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You sure? Need some time? First of all, you won't even get the job. You're gonna just keep going on auditions and keep going on auditions. And you can play the part. You know, I see a lot of you guys, I'm like, your talent is, yeah, you can play the part. But I will tell you, point blank, you can't do the job. That's two different things. So go home tonight or whenever, talk to yourself and do I want to do this for a hobby or do I want to do this as a high-paying career? Because man, it's got to be effortless. They give you 20 new pages because they had to do a rewrite, especially if you're going to do a Marvel movie or whatever. It's got to be like, no problem. No problem. So.
On that,
Yes.
I read Jenna Fisher's book, and she talks about, I mean, obviously like headshots and the business and all this, and she was here for 8 years before she booked The Office. And she went on tons of auditions, obviously before that, she booked a couple of small things. But into what you're saying, her day job was working in an office. So when she got cast in The Office, it wasn't really getting the part, it was where she had put all of her efforts into.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow, if I had to try out for a server,
You do a blindfolded, right?
blindfolded.
Yeah.
But, you know, if Marvel or something like that, yeah, that's gonna take work and a hard time. So it's where you put your time and your effort.
So in those 16 years I've known Sean, I've never heard him say it that way because every teacher says train, right? And you guys are all training, but I don't know that you're training towards as if this is a high-paying career, as if you were going to go be a doctor or a lawyer or fuck, even if it's a 4-year accountant degree, you know? So, cool. That's what I had. So I wanted to pass that, guys. So just thinking when you're at home, do I want to approach this as the high-paying career that it has the possibility of being? Or am I just going to hope, basically, that I win the lottery? Cool. Anybody else? I like it.